Welcome back, everybody. Round 4 is already underway, so we're jumping into our last match of the evening here. Brian Kuhn over on the left side of the screen going up against Sinhui coming back here on the feature match area. Both of these decks have red. One of them, it's entirely the deck. The other one, it's just a splash.
Yeah, so as I was alluding to earlier, we have multiple domain decks in the room. Brian's actually has the red splash for the Overlord of the Boilerbilges in the main deck, and usually Pyroclasms in the sideboard. This one's the extra greedy version of the domain deck that's actually trying to play all 5 colors, specifically to play, honestly, probably the best Overlord to pair with Zerg, because you're getting a damage trigger, which then means you're gaining the life, which is kind of insane.
Especially in this specific matchup.
Yeah. But Sinhui, really excited to have him back because hopefully we can actually see a Ball Lightning resolve this time.
That would make me so happy. But instead, we're just going to have a Hired Claw turn 1 from Sinhui, and Brian's going to be playing Analyze the Pollen, probably trying to find just the mana available to cast whatever in hand right here, as we have an all basics affair coming out from Brian so far.
Yeah. Or just find another green source. This to me reads that I have a Hauntwoods in hand that I want to cast next turn to turn on my bindings and just get all the colors of mana, and then hopefully find another red source to throw down a Boilerbilges and start taking out some of these creatures.
Can I read both those real quick?
All right, so Emberheart Challenger is going to come in. Hired Claw is also going to be on the battlefield, so I'm anticipating 4 damage coming across to Brian's face, and I've already updated it, but Brian wants to take a second to read the cards, see if there's anything he can do here.
I'm anticipating there might be an Elspeth Smite that's going to come across.
Yeah, that could be something that could happen here, although... Let's see. Yep, Brian going to use that Elspeth Smite over there, so that turns me for a fool. Brian's actually only going to be at 18 instead of going down to 16 here.
It's as if I play this deck and I know a lot.
I was like, Ride's End doesn't cost 1 mana, that costs 2.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really good seeing Elspeth Smite still here. I think it is actually a really good meta choice specifically for our store. But for the most part, a lot of folks have moved on to just Ride's End and Get Lost as the 2 primary removal spells. However, as predicted, we do have an Overlord of the Hauntwoods coming in, making the Everywhere token. We have Domain accessible, even though we only have two actual basics in play.
It's pretty
2
solid.
different basics.
And just passing the turn back on over to Sinhui's side. Does have a bunch of mice in hand. Has a turn on Inside Out as well. 3 mana available. Much less than games 1 and 3 of his last match. Much more than game number 2.
I think, yeah, this is definitely a big decision turn. You have, obviously, he's pulled to the front the Heartfire Hero, which he can give haste with the village. Looks like we are tapping 2, though, for a second Emberheart Challenger. So here we are going to just go to combat. Hit for effectively 4 here, no other effects, and just play the Heartfire Hero on end step. So this is kind of walking into a Sunfall.
Oh, it's the same.
But hopefully that isn't the case, and we can actually have the red deck kind of close again.
You know, I have to say, Walking into Sunfall is one of my favorite 80s songs, though. Looks like Leyline Binding in hand here for Brian. No real Sunfall. Just passes the turn. No land drop either, unfortunately.
Honestly, that's kind of fine. You have 2 white mana up, which is representing probably 2 removal spells, so that's good. Hopefully, one of them's probably going to take out wherever most of the mana from Sinhui's side is going to go. The other one, hopefully just gets another creature. And yeah.
All right, so Sinhui now has a decision to make. With all this available mana, where do you put your pump spells? Because you do have the face-up Rockface Village. You wind up having this turn Inside Out. Looks like maybe even a Slickshot Show-Off in hand or something. I saw some sort of creature in the back here, but instead going to be starting with the village on the Heartfire Hero for a Valiant Trigger, and this is probably the safest play against what, assuming targeted removal, this is probably safe plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I would have, on my perspective, I probably would have hit the Challenger to try and draw a card, maybe hit the land and have additional resources, but also hitting the Heartfire Hero is the least of your worries if this does happen. And now that we have 1 removal out, do we end up playing the Inside Out here too?
That's what I'm thinking. You can still do that play onto the Emberheart Challenger with the turn Inside Out. If there's 2 removal spells, oh well.
You weren't going to win there anyway. And I Yeah, I can also definitely see Sinway just like kind of playing it slow, knowing that there's additional mana up for removal.
Emberheart, targeted Valiant.
All right, we get Valiant, and we have Prowess triggers on the stack here. That's what you don't want to see, unfortunately, is flipping over the Double Strike Trampler Giver.
Yeah, but what's nice is that even if this dies once it resolves, we're going to be getting a nice little backup body. But it sounds like we do have something coming in, and that is the Get Lost before it resolves.
All right, so we're only going to be taking 1 additional damage off of all this, so still had everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we have some maps, maps are really good when you have Valiant.
That's also true. Giving your deck that has Valiant Mice a way to target them is not bad. It looks like, yeah, I think, is that a Manifold Mouse? Or
Yeah, I think it's a Manifold Mouse on top.
Okay, so that's actually not going to do anything with the higher claw, unfortunately.
Yeah,
the
I think
Manifold Mouse, Bolt Wave, and
Sorcery?
yeah.
That's what I think I saw too. But yeah, looks like still on 4 mana pass. Unfortunately, getting stuck on lands, but that does mean we probably have gas in hand.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully more removal and stuff like that. We're definitely in good shape to not need to play a sweeper, which is nice. And we're at a respectably healthy 12 life.
All right, so Sinway going to crack map number 1, targeting that higher claw.
So we'll explore, reveal.
All right, sounds like they are. The trigger is going to resolve. No removal here. Do we find a land? We find a Ball Lightning.
Ball Lightning.
I am perfectly.
We're keeping it.
Yeah, let's go. Ball Lightning next turn. We love to see it in this house.
This is how Mono Red gets impending triggers.
I'll get lost.
All right, looks like we are going to get lost the creature before combat.
All right, we get more maps. Can't put those on our Ball Lightning without other mana in hand, unfortunately. But now we have the decision: do we play Mouse? Do we play Burn spells? What are we gonna do?
I'm assuming here we're just deploying the Manifold Mouse and just passing. Put a creature on board. There isn't really much else that we want to do. Do we have a second Manifold Mouse?
We do. That'll be interesting because we could give Double Strike and Trample next turn. Double Strike on the Manifold Mouse plus a Monstrous Rage represents 8 damage.
Yeah,
we can Double Strike itself, I believe, right? So then we can do 8 damage, and Bolt Wave is 1-off lethal. Just from the Manifold Mouse. Oh yeah, we have the Overlord coming.
Yeah, the Overlord's coming back. Like, you're gonna have a blocker.
And we have 2 cards in hand from Brian's side.
Yeah, so, I mean, still holding up removal. We do have some red mana, which is good to see. That means a Boilerbilges is able to be played next turn.
And a Ball Lightning.
Yep. Very, very interested. Again, Red Mage doing some math, trying to figure out what is the best play for them tonight. We are mapping to start us off.
I was trying to manifest Ball Lightning.
And is this the third get? Oh my God, it's the third get lost.
Gas, gas, gas.
Yeah, it fizzles out.
So no map trigger from that. Gets 2 more maps though. But
was
you can play the
refunded.
other Manifold Mouse.
Yep.
Aha, you have 3 get lost. I have 3 Manifold Mice. But this is just kind of stymieing what Sinway is doing, unfortunately. Just making him basically time walk every single turn, while Brian found land number 5, has an active Overlord now, and is going to be able to play basically anything in his deck.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if Brian decides to turn the corner and go on the offensive, or continue to kind of play patient, wait for more mana to get under him before he decides to start hitting in. But we do see a swing for 6, so finally Sinway does get dinged a little bit, and we get another everywhere.
Yep. Assuming that that's just going to be going to face. Sinway probably has no blocks. It looks like we are going to say post-combat already, so Sinway taking 6 down to 14. And now Brian's got 5 mana available, can do pretty much whatever he wants. You get a impending Boiler Boy, just clean up the mouse. Oh, no, Mistmoors, the other one.
Yeah, also fine.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, this guy just like again, it's the most upgraded Grave Titan we've ever seen, and good lord, it does so much. Flyers, it can come down for cheap. It's just big.
It's huge, pretty huge.
It's even bigger when you have Zur.
That is true. All right, now Sinway has interesting lines ahead of him. Ball Lightning's in hand. Top decking a land gives access to Monstrous Rage. Double striking or Manifold Mouse could be pretty solid, but it looks like it's just yet another spell that Sinway is going to draw.
Notably, we have no more white mana, so the door is open.
Yeah.
We can go in, try and hit big, get a lot of damage through. In particular, again, we're going to be getting trample and double strike hopefully, but it's just ball lightning time.
Ball Lightning!
What a blast from the past. Just basically it is really just basically burn 6 face. Do you want to put creatures in front of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sacrifice an end step. Do you want to, how many of your moths do you want to chew up in order to just take 1 or 2 less damage? And it looks like that Brian's going to say none, just takes the straight 6.
Yeah, and right now I feel like we really need a Zur from Brian. Definitely we're lacking the colors. We now needed both everywhere in play because we didn't have blue or black. So we are kind of mapping things out. The Monstrous Rage is going to be nice because it can help trample over that last bit of damage. I think you're right. I think we're going to get there next turn if Brian doesn't have removal.
All right, so Sinway goes down to 8. We actually can't Zur and activate this turn because there's only 1 white. We have to tap those 2 everywhere. Very good point there, Frenchie. Tapping the 2 everywhere is tapping the white. So Brian just holding up removal here.
And we found a Swift Spear off the top, which is pretty solid too. So now we have an additional creature coming in.
So we have Swift Spear, we have Monstrous Rage, and we have, I don't know what else is in hand.
I think
is
it's
it?
another mouse, yeah.
Okay, so we play the Swift Spear. Now we have Monstrous Rage. Is that, I think there's a mouse and a lightning strike.
Okay.
So this is interesting. So we're going in for double strike here. If you don't block, it's dead, but you're going to get trample here. So that's going to pump this up to 8 damage. Oh, we're putting it on the Swift Spear.
Interesting.
This is on stack.
I think
So it's gonna give it
I think
2,
it's
3, 4,
lethal coming in off of the mouse, no? Because of the double strike?
But it's not trample.
The rage gives trample.
Yeah, but he's targeting the...
No, I know, but
Yeah.
if the rage targets the manifold mouse. Interesting. Okay.
So
Is there a second Monstrous Rage?
strikes, dice, and then here it's gonna be 4.
Okay, so we are going down to 2. I think we're also okay with no other creatures on board. We
have Bolt Wave.
Bolt Wave. GG. Okay. Never mind. We were doing all this math, and it was just much easier than we thought.
I thought it was a lightning strike, but instead it's just lightning bolt, so we had the mana to do it anyway.
Yeah, it was fine. We were okay.
We're sitting here trying to do math and sweating it out, and Sinway just had it covered the entire time.
Yeah.
I guess that's what you're talking about, though, when it came to the red domain deck being like a tiny bit greedier, was the fact that we had a green-red dual land in the mana base there. Even though we skipped a couple of turns and didn't draw our lands, when we did, we drew the red-green land, and we couldn't Zur activate if that's what Brian had in hand there.
Yeah, it's actually having the 5th color mana be needed for the deck to function, and in particular, playing a 2 red pip spell on turn 4 is a tough ask, given just how many tap lands you're already playing. Yes, we have the Verges, but you still need some number of basic types in your deck to be able to turn them on, so there's a lot of push-pull, and you see a lot of domain pilots in all different versions of the archetype that are trying to figure out what the right balance is between the two. And it just gets even worse when you are trying to emphasize the red as well as the rest of the colors in the deck. In particular, the red domain deck, instead of playing more like a Bant deck, it plays more like a Naya deck. So it makes casting Zur even harder, because Zur is truly your also cast 2 different colors from what your main game plan is doing.
Yeah, and in addition to that, now you mentioned some sideboard options from Brian's side. Could potentially have things like Pyroclasm in the sideboard. So like you said, if you're leaning more into the Naya style colors, sure, you have a lot of targeted removal. You have a lot of board wipes. You probably are putting in like 10 blockdowns or extra rides ends or things like that if those are in the sideboard, but then that means that you may not necessarily have access to some of the blue interactive spells that we saw we saw Alwyn playing a little bit earlier, like the negates and stuff to kind of counteract a lot of the spell slinging side of what this specific mono red deck is playing, actually, because Sinway is on the mono red deck wins version where he's burning people out and playing ball lightning. It's not the mouse Gruul package that is slowly getting there through incremental targeting.
Which, granted, we still have the mouse package, but, you know, when you can also accent the mouse package with ball lightning, which is a more powerful, like, big hit over the top, as opposed to, like, a Screaming Nemesis, which is just an annoying clock, but can be dealt with relatively easily in comparison. It kind of creates a different style of a deck to go up against, and in particular, the more Naya style mana base is going to have a tough time dealing with. And yeah, once you're down to like 5-4 life, I would be sweating the entire time.
Oh yeah, definitely, because we saw right there. I mean, you went down to 6, and all of a sudden it was a Bolt Wave and a Monastery Swiftspear that completely turned the game around. So Brian's going to be hard-pressed to try to kill things basically on sight when, like you said, for the first 3 turns, he's not doing a whole lot of the stuff that the normal Xur Overlords deck is doing by playing, being able to basically get Domain online by turn 2 or 3.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to kind of see how folks decide to sideboard. I know one of the big things with Domain pilots is how many beans do you take out in these aggro matchups? Do you take out the full play set? Do you just take out a couple? So that way you still have some draw in the deck at some point when you can sneak it in once you've stabilized. It all kind of depends on the flavor of the month and how you feel kind of going into it. So it'll be interesting to see what direction Brian decides to go.
Interesting note there. I full screened a little bit because I saw Sinhui looking at cards that he was going to be taking out of the deck, and noticed that some of the Soulstone Sanctuaries came out. So going real aggressive in this matchup. Taking out the longevity of having those creature lands and, of course, having just the colorless mana. But the fact of the matter is, like, a lot of these aggro decks in Standard are still running upwards of 22-ish or more lands, because you are running a bunch of these colorless lands and you need to hit your colored mana. Red deck get away with a little bit less even because you're playing one color, you're going to have a lot of that, but with Rock-based Village and the Soulstone Sanctuary, you sometimes run into these areas where playing the burn deck, you don't have the color mana you need to cast the burn spell. So it seems like cutting some of these, putting in more spells, may wind up making this matchup a little more reliable on having those like 2 red sources by turn 2, like we saw in his previous match that lost him that one overall.
Yeah, and in particular, I think part of the reason why, too, is, like, Soulstone is such a dead card in this matchup. It dies, if it's not pumped up, it dies to an Elspeth Smite. It does escape Ride's End, which is nice. It doesn't tap itself, but then when you tap it for mana, it'll die, so that's not great.
That's because it stays a creature. You don't keep reactivating it like a mutable.
Yeah, but you also have just... Yeah, it's just putting in cleaner spells and not worrying about the Soulstone, because like Soulstone gets eaten up by sweepers, and just it's a risky card. And I think it's a really interesting design to have a land that animates permanently as a creature land. That's new design space I don't think we've seen before, and it's pretty cool seeing how much of an impact it has made. We have a land.
He's keeping it.
Yeah, cool. And it looks like this time Brian is the one on the...
Ooh.
That's not what Sinway wants to hear. That is the Ball Lightning is a bad card.
This is Ball Lightning no fun, and unfortunately why people don't play the card as much anymore. Authority of the consoles, everything comes into play tapped, everything games Brian a life, and if Ball Lightning replaced Screaming Nemesis in Sinhui's list, he's going to be kicking himself.
See, I don't know if it replaced it. I think it's just in addition to, because I think I might have seen a Screaming Nemesis in hand as well. So, oops.
Ooh, and land number 2. So we have the prerequisite cast basically everything in our deck. Oh, I love the fact that they mismatched too. Good job, Sinway. Good job. I mean, they're still like the same style, but there's variety.
They're so pretty.
They're so pretty. Why would you limit yourself to one artwork of land?
Everyone has their own personal preference. Don't yuck people's yums.
I'm not yucking their yum. I'm just saying I like my pretty lands. We see Monstrous Rage get responded to by
I think we have
Spite.
oh no, but yeah, this is an exile effect. Shoot, it would have been It would have been really nice if Turn Inside Out would have worked here, but unfortunately Elspeth Smite does exile once the damage is dealt, so you're not going to get the trigger to flip over a Manifest token off of the Manifest Dread.
Exile.
Just going to cleanly deal with the best red 1-drop in the deck, but looks like we have a, we got Fire Claw. Can't complain there. We have a little more pressure still. Unfortunately, 22 now for Brian. Yet another small hurdle for this deck to overcome.
Right, Surveil Land keeps on top. Commercial district there. And Brian now thinking about what he wants to do. Oh, no, actually just decides to bin that one. Just was thinking about it. No Beanstalk or anything quite yet. It's just going to be passing the turn off of that. And now Sinhui has that turn inside out. Has Monastery. Swift Spear has second Hired Claw. Could be going for a decent amount of damage here, but Brian might have answers.
All right, looks like we have been allowed to go to combat, allowed to deal 1. Are we going to add a spell? Are we going to pump it?
Ooh, a second Monstrous Raid. All right.
And a second removal spell? No
Doesn't
second
look like it.
removal spell. Okay, this is a big swing of damage, and it looks like we're going to hold on to the turn inside out. That's actually, I kind of like that.
Ooh, there's a temporary lockdown in hand too.
Ooh, okay. We did unfortunately miss 1 damage if we had played the Hired Claw earlier in combat, but I also like, having the ability to have additional things to do during your combat steps, so...
Oh, Brian's still playing Herd Migration too.
Oh, I think that's absolutely correct. Herd Migration, even as a one-of, is just so potent, especially in grindy games. Me personally, I've won games off hard casting Herd Migration when myself and my domain opponent are just like top decking into each other. It's, what do you do if you don't have the Sunfall? You lose.
All right, so that should put Brian back up to 21 as well. So Brian is very much so not wanting his life total to fall below where it started, much to Sinhui's dismay. And then finds the swamp. So we have...
we have all of our colors, but we have 4 out of 5 for domain.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking here, we have... So both of those verges, only 1 taps for white right now, right?
No, so the white-blue one, you have Lush Portico in play, so it's going to activate the flood
it's a
farm.
Lush Portico. I thought
Yeah.
that was the Selesnya
Hush
Verge.
word,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm thinking like, this temp lockdown's not going to do anything because we can't cast it. No, we can cast the temp lockdown.
Yeah, and it feels like it's going to come down right now and kind of be a pretty sizable blowout here.
Yeah, and the Mono Red version of the deck does not have access to the Gruul cards like Paw Patch Formation, so there is no way for them to get rid of temporary lockdown.
Oh, wow. It looks like Brian's deciding to let this pass, trying to see if Sinway can commit to the board a bit more. Honestly, yeah, that's with where your life total is at. I think you can kind of play a little more patient. You are going to be getting two additional damage pinging across before combat. And are we going to be playing the... Okay, we're going to activate one of the Hired Claws to see if Brian decides to flinch.
Oh, here comes Turn Inside Out.
Inside out on this one.
All right, and now Brian is indeed deciding to flinch.
Elspeth Smite.
Yep. Another one. Yeah, this card is really the red deck's worst nightmare, just because it's so cheap and efficient, and if their creatures aren't growing out of range of it, they can just kind of get eaten up. But yeah.
So Brian falls down to 17.
That temp lockdown is like much more of a safety valve than it is anything you need to play right now.
I guess the argument against playing temporary lockdown as well is the fact that this authority of the consoles is preventing any of the haste threats from Sinway's side. So if you temp lockdown the board, you're getting rid of your own best defensive measure.
Yeah, that's one of the unfortunate non-bows of playing authority in a temp lockdown deck. Ooh, okay. I think we are finding a creature this time. I wonder what Brian has decided to grab. Analyze the pollen by collecting evidence. Conveniently, one of the nice things about Herd Migration is it is 7 out of 8 evidence you need to collect.
And then just the Elspeth Smite counting for the last one. So potentially a Zur, potentially an Overlord. We have a bunch of things. The world is Brian's oyster right now. And with so many different colors in the deck, there's a ton of different things that you can find. A lot of them are pretty much going to lock Sinway out of the game, though.
Yeah, I'm I'm interested because the mana that we're representing right now, granted, the mana we are representing right now is Zur mana, but I like this. Just grabbing the Mistmoors. It creates blockers, which is pretty solid. If you have the land in hand to play here, you are going to be able to impend on before end of turn, but it looks like we're just passing because we did not have the land drop again.
No land drop, so that means it's Temp Lockdown, some other spell, and now the Overlord of the Mistmoors in hand for Brian. We have Monastery, Swift Spear, and...
I think that was Witch Stalker's Frenzy.
Okay, so that's what that is. So unfortunately, removal spell and 1/2, which both of those don't really line up great against anything Brian has right now.
Not particularly. Oh, it might not actually be Witch Stalker's Frenzy. I wonder what it is.
Just one.
Anywho, looks like we are coming across for a little bit of damage here, and we have decided to pump once again.
It's 3.
Of course, trying to see if Brian flinches. It looks like
No flinch.
has
Oh, before damage.
he has decided
He's
to
flinching.
flinch again. There's a binding for 2 going over there, and yeah, now that leyline bind or not leyline bind, now the temp lockdown's looking pretty weird right now.
Yeah, it's definitely looking a little bit weird, but at the same time is preventing Monastery Swift Spear from doing the swift part of its name.
Yeah.
We have this Overlord in hand that can just be slammed down here and make 2/2/2 flyers. Found our 5th land and everything, and with Brian having so many things on the battlefield that Sinhui just can't interact with, I think it's just kind of going to be like a slow spoon, slowly beating Sinhui to death here.
Yeah, so unfortunately this doesn't close super quick. So Sinhui might actually just kind of like drown out the time a little bit, learn a little more about this red splash that Brian is running, and just kind of seeing what makes the most sense here. Just land go. Don't want to trade here if we don't have the spell for it. I could see Sinhui also just like throwing the Swift Sphere at the 2 creatures and hoping that we get double block. But no, we're turning the corner.
Yeah, Brian's like, I am the aggressor now. Just completely playing the control style game plan here in this one, going land, go. Actually, in that case, not even playing land, just saying go, having 3 cards still in hand, and an impending Overlord that's just going to pop off next turn, or 2 turns from now.
All right, we got a swing. Do we have a spell? Nope, it is just a single point of damage. Unfortunate.
Sinhui's like, well, this Swiffer can't jump anyway, so might as well just crack in with it and see if Brian removes it or wastes a spell on 1 damage. Instead, just gets cracked back for 4 in the air. And Pending takes off with this Overlord of the Mistmoors, and Brian just doesn't have to do anything right now. It's all on Sinhui to try to make something happen, and I don't think there's anything the red deck can really do at this point.
I think that might, because we probably would have seen 1 frenzy cast if it was indeed a frenzy. I think that might be the what's the threaten effect from Eldraine. I forget what it's called, but I think it's that card actually. And
the actor treason.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it might be that, but we do have another Swift Sphere coming in, which means unfortunately Brian does gain another life. But yeah, continue to swing in. We have a 2-turn clock left. Yeah, I believe it is a Twisted Fealty. It seems like it is those colors.
Yeah, so if we get the Twisted Fealty, steal the Overlord of the Mistmoors.
Which I think is the plan for this turn.
Because if we do that, and it's good to go, even though Sinhui's down to 8, that's going to swing in, make a couple of flyers, which are not attacking. They're just going to be there. They can block. They can block the opposing flyers, most importantly. So we are swinging in for 7 damage there, and then the Overlord goes back to Brian's side.
Yeah, 8 because you have the... Okay, we're just deciding to scoop it up because even with the Twisted Fealty, we're not going to be able to... We're just going to be out attrition at that point. We're going to make too many 2/2s on 2/1s on Brian's side, and it's just going to be too much to handle.
Yeah, and also not giving the information of having the Twisted Fealty post sideboard is probably pretty important for Sinhui's side, especially because if you're on the play in game number 3 and you do have that as like a turn 4 or 5 thing to steal something from Brian's side, you could just wind up winning the game there.
Yeah, there is a little bit of risk though with the Twisted Fealty because as soon as the Zur hits the field, you can no longer take the Overlord, so you need to hit the Zur first before you can even do so. So
My last one did.
well, it's a great card. Don't get us wrong, but it's definitely got its weaknesses in this specific matchup.
And it's going to be interesting too, because the only thing I can think of from Sinhue's deck that is going to be able to deal with a Zur outside of combat damage is going to be a Witchstalker's Frenzy. So if you Witchstalker's Frenzy and attack to reduce the cost of that to get rid of the Zur, that means that like you're in combat already. So then the Twisted Fealty is like a turn later. So it's super slow at that point. But if Brian is running non-Zur creatures, which I don't think there are any, and I don't think there's a reason to be running any besides Zur and the Overlords, the Twisted Fealty makes a lot of sense. Like the old list that ran Atraxa, stealing it with a Twisted Fealty before they could gain life was potentially just game ending.
Yeah. Yeah, you also have Beza in a lot of these decks too.
Okay, yeah, Beza's a good one.
Beza's kind of the only non Overlord or Zur creature that's ended up in a lot of these decks, and for good reason. The life gain, the extra creatures, it's a great stonewall for aggro. There's a reason why it's kind of become the ubiquitous catch-up card in the format that so many of the more grindy decks are playing to be able to combat the Pixies and the Gruul aggro, since it's so good against both of them.
Yeah, you're a good old 4/5 front-loaded Shieldred. It gets you immediate effect. It gets you a ton of effect, unless it was... I think Owen played it in our first match against Sinfang and only got a single card. Because you get fish, you get treasure tokens, you draw cards, but it only did one thing in that matchup specifically. But we are going to be going into Resolve our Mulligans for game number 3. Sinway on the play. Doesn't like what he sees, but has 2 mana and a bunch of 2 mana spells.
Yeah, it looks like Brian is deciding to ship this as well. Sinway has kept. So, here's the thing. 2 lands. That should be enough. It's a little awkward that we don't really look like we have 1-drops, but honestly, this probably is better than a decent 6, especially if you have like 2 Challengers or Challenger plus Manifold Mouse and a whole bunch of other good cards.
But we got a Boiler Boy over on the side of Brian.
But it doesn't look like there's a lot of land.
Never mind, put the Boiler Boy back.
Yeah, I think it's a little too hard to cast.
No 1-drop, but we have Twisted Fealty, Emberheart Challenger, and a couple of other things in hand here that looking pretty red for Sinway's deck. Just Underground Mortuaries, surveilling away a Plains for Brian, and the turn gets passed back over. Emberheart Challenger probably going to be the play, but we did top deck a Heartfire Hero, yeah. But we're just going to wind up bashing him for 2 here. And, a Rockface Village would be pretty solid. We could target, give haste. We have a second Emberheart Challenger as well.
Yeah. Do we have the white source in hand? We do. Okay, cool. I think we top-decked an Authority of the Consuls.
Oh, no. There it is. By the Authority of the Consuls, that is going to be a lot of life for Brian to be incrementally gaining throughout the course of this match.
Yeah, and that also means that any hasty threats are going to be turned off. We did find a Lightning Strike. Face is the place with this one, especially in this matchup. There isn't really much that you can do outside of just go face. You're not really going to be doing much else. Are we... No effects.
Just 2.
Just 2.
Are we doing slow Emberheart Challenger? Or
Yeah,
are we doing
probably
Heartfire Hero?
Some sort of slow play, just because we know we can't go super fast given the Authority here.
Game 1.
Yeah, we got a hero, and we are passing the turn. So Brian goes back up to 17, and it looks like we have land, which is good, but hopefully not too much land.
Yeah, we did wind up bidding a land off of the Surveil as well, so Brian signaling he doesn't need a ton of that. Playing this will enable double green as well as double white. I think I saw a temporary lockdown in hand, but once again, that little awkward synergy with the Authority of Consuls and the temp lockdown is there. Looks like Lush Portico is going to be the play and keeps that Surveil on top, so Sinway is probably not too happy about that.
Yeah, and that probably means it is some group action because we got a good amount of lands here, and we can interact, we can kill some of these creatures, all that stuff. It looks like we are getting a nice quick swing for 3.
We're swinging for 3, but we also top deck Ball Lightning with 2 mana and Authority of the Consuls on the battlefield.
If the card wasn't a dead card already, it is unfortunately even more dead.
This is like it was a zombie and then it died again. But Elspeth Smite's going to come out here. maybe looking to hit the Heartfire Hero while it's not
Yeah.
pumped up. And so just taking 2 off of the Emberheart Challenger.
Yeah, because there's no way for you to kind of get out of range. But now we have double Challenger, which is pretty solid here. Going to be swinging in for 4 every turn. Also kind of like that play of playing the Heartfire Hero, because you know that the Domain player is going to probably more actively go after that card because it's the one that scales super well, whereas Challenger just with the prowess isn't going to do as much. But yeah, we have 4 mana now, and we're just passing the turn right back. Good old land go control.
And we only have 3 for Domain, correct? We have the Lush Portico, the Underground Mortuary, so we're saying Leyline Binding costs 3 right now.
Yes, Leyline Binding does indeed cost 3.
I think there was one in hand here, so we'll see if Brian fires that off here, if Sinway has a pump spell. Or, just triggering prowess with that Lightning Strike in hand. Looks like Monstrous Rage, Lightning Strike are options. Twisted Fealty and Ball Lightning looking a little awkward right now, especially with the only 2 mana available.
And it looks like we are attempting to Monstrous Rage one of our challengers. We are going to get a Valiant trigger. See what the top has to hold. It is a Bolt Wave. That is going to be cast on end step. Before end step, I can guarantee that.
So Brian thinking about firing off a Leyline Binding?
I mean, any sort of removal would be worth it here. Yeah. Yeah, just get rid of it. Not worth it. Not worth taking that extra damage. Taking 3 here.
And like you said, probably taking another 3 off this Bolt Wave.
Yep. Yeah, nice, quick, clean, easy. Going to 10.
Prowess trigger.
Unfortunately, a tad late.
That's kind of the story of every single card in Sinway's deck when Authority of the Console is on the battlefield, unfortunately. But Sinway does have Brian down to 10, and if Brian doesn't have an Overlord of the Mistmoors this turn, could be pretty close race.
As soon as you say that.
I'm sorry, Sinway. I didn't mean to jinx you. I do it accidentally.
Yeah. But yeah, big guys coming through, making 2/1 flyers. Is impending, has 3 counters left after the turn passes. We did find another Heartfire Hero, it looks like. But yeah, Lightning Strike is a little awkward here. I guess we could attack in with the Challenger, see if there's only a single block, and then just Lightning Strike face, and at least keep your Challenger and get rid of one.
That would probably be best case scenario. I mean, playing Heartfire Hero here just gains a life and sets you up for next turn, but then gives the Domain deck another turn to untap and do things.
Which, when you have the mana, we do have Zur mana online here. We have 2 white sources, and we have a white-blue source and a black source. So yeah, we're kicking it. We can, this turn, if we would like to, we can play Zur, activate Zur, and attack with the Overlord, and just basically turn the corner and close this game.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad for Sinway. But that would also be very good for Brian, as that would also just completely, like you said, basically make it a 2-turn clock. But Brian instead just going to pass the turn, continue to play the control side of this deck, and
Sinway has started with 2 lands and has not found one since. This
has
is kind
not.
of the opposite story of some of these other games.
yeah, it's his game 2 from the last time around. And what is this?
Scorching Shot.
Oh, it's gonna deal 5. All right.
Interesting. So we are doing this just to be able to get a prowess trigger. Yeah, because we know the Heartfire Hero is going to be even trading with the hero isn't great, so we might be blocking 3 damage here just to save some life and take 1.
Yeah, the Scorching Shot, I guess technically a second way for Sinway to actually deal with Zur in this deck.
Fortunately, before Twisted Fealty.
All right, so we are going to wind up taking 1 off of the Heartfire Hero anyway, so then that's going to wind up going down for 4 damage.
Yeah, going down to 7. So this is the line to make sure that the Heartfire Hero can't get pumped up super big. Oh, we have a case now too, but no lands to be able to cast all these spells. This draw for Sinway has been exceptionally awkward, and for Brian has been exceptionally good, especially given the Authority of the Consoles, both games coming down before turn 3.
All right, so Brian right now just has to have a removal spell and fade something from Sinway. Top decks Bolt Wave. Sinway has Lightning Strike, Bolt Wave,
But
3
no
mana,
third.
3 mana, 3 mana, 3 mana. One of those is a ball of lightning, which is actively tap 3. Brian gains 1 life right now.
Yeah. So I think here we attack in.
4 damage.
Lightning strike, and then pray.
That can resolve.
Interesting. So yeah, the lightning strike resolves. You go to 4. 4 damage. We are gonna get another label.
There's a get lost as well. He flipped over and was considering.
Yeah.
All right, so Sinway top decks Bolt Wave, a Shock, some sort of a Burst Lightning. He can win this
we
game.
have game. Yeah.
So long as this turn is not Zur, animate any of my enchantments. No, I did it again. Okay, never mind. Okay.
You got so scared there.
I was like, no.
All right, so this is Hauntwoods, good old instant domain, ramp you a thing, all that stuff. But yeah.
All right, Overlord of the Mistmoors comes off of impending.
Yeah, this is also scary.
Land Twisted Fealty would also win.
Oh my god. Wait. Higher Claw. Higher Claw's okay.
Well,
If
Higher
Higher
Claw
Claw
can
can attack. True. Okay, Bolt Wave.
Yeah, I'll take 3.
All right, down to 1. 1 isn't 0, but it's damn close.
Claw, go ahead.
It's tapped.
Oh, right.
It's so damn close.
Oh man. All right, so burn spell off the top is lethal.
Sunspine Beast.
That is a Sunspine Lynx.
Okay, I think the boarding out of your colorless sources is kind of biting Sinway a little bit.
All right,
Dang, this is so rough.
are we gonna Leyline Binding
Leyline binding.
the Higher Claw? Oh my god. It's been Elspeth Smite, triple Leyline Binding, Authority of the Consoles, and we know that the last card in Brian's hand is a Get Lost.
That's so much.
So we're gonna attack. That's going to be 6 damage. It makes 2 blockers.
Surveil.
We know that last card is Get Lost. Bolt Wave, Shock,
I swear, if I died a bolt wave,
a Stiff Breeze, and Sinway is going to be able to steal this game.
Another Bolt Wave. There is a lot of live top decks here.
It's Lightning Strike.
it's on 2.
Okay, you did. Okay.
All right,
All right.
flip it over. Show us.
Heartfire Hero.
Not the hero.
Oh, yeah, you have to consider this one. If you gain Brian 1 more life, if you have shock effects in your deck, that is no longer live for murder.
Yeah.
No longer murdering. But the Get Lost represents the fact that this Heartfire Hero could still deal some damage.
I think the bigger thing here is we've now turned the corner. We're gonna have blockers at all times. So even with the with stealing the Overlord of the Mistmoors,
Yeah, that's just not a thing anymore.
it's not gonna work because we're always gonna have untapped creatures.
Kyle!
Unfortunately, they've activated the
I
hidden
don't know what
mode
happened.
of the tablet, which is lock screen. But Brian will be at 3. Okay, so there is a possibility that, I mean, I'm assuming that Sinway has no pump spells in hand, but there is a possibility that if Brian Get Lost the Heartfire Hero, he can kill himself.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think is probably what he's going to try and avoid.
Yeah. All right. So right now we have what? We have 10 damage represented here from the Overlord and the two insects. We have a live top deck. Zur puts the game completely out of reach.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Overlord of the Boilerbilges could hit Sinway for 4 and kill him.
That's another authority.
All right.
Another
Second
authority
authority.
of the
No more
councils?
creatures, indeed. That sounds like a
And
terrible
we have
idea.
Get Lost. All right. Flip it. Flip it. Flip it. Oh, you didn't flip it. No,
Oh,
it's a
no.
Witch Stalker's Frenzy. It's the wrong kind of burn spell. And Brian, by the skin of his Overlord teeth, is going to take the match, be one of the 4 O's, and potentially be taking home the increased prize pool split from being super standard.